Sheriff, thank you very much for joining us tonight. So in regard to this New York law, a lot of critics say that this is just an example of New York kind of granting people a reward, essentially, for breaking the law, that law, of course, being in the country illegally. What's your take on this whole system?
Well, I got to tell you, I believe that New York is not on the proverbial slippery slope. They're in free fall to open this up to fraud for the security issues that other guests have already talked about is incredible. And that it also undermines the legitimate immigrant who's come over here and worked hard to get where they're at, and now they do this. I think that we've got to figure out a way to stop New York from doing this. Cartel is great at creating fraudulent documents. And if they can control 400,000 voters in New York, because that's what it'll turn out to be, is you won't have the Italian mob to be concerned about, as they used to say up there in New York. You're going to have the cartel mob running a lot of shows up there. And I believe that fraud is going to be wide open, security issues are going to be wide open, and it's going to muddy the waters even more for this immigration issue.
Defenders of this law argue that the streets will be safer because illegal aliens will then be required to take driving tests and follow up and stuff like that. That's the argument that they're really settling on right now. What do you make of that defense?
I believe that's just surface stuff. I believe that they are trying to create a voter's block themselves, and I believe that to be just surface stuff that they're doing there. And I think there's so much other things that are at stake. And I think it's just undermining the incredible integrity of everything else there. And as you said in the poll, 50% of the New Yorkers don't want this. And so they're going on without the people's approval.
In some theory, you can't even go after these people for having wrong documents. You can't even go after these individuals for driving type of violations, because in essence, they would go to jail. And then from there, as we know how sanctuary city policies work, they have to be released. They can't communicate with ICE or DHS officials. Is that an accurate way to portray this dilemma?
I think you're spot on. You very well articulated it. It is going to significantly muddy the waters. And if you think about it, not the hardworking illegal alien that might be there not bothering anybody, but there's as many criminal illegal aliens that are violating the law that we're given a pass to.
Is there a different alternative route that they should be pursuing, or is this just kind of a bad policy to begin with?
I think it's a horrible policy to begin with, and I think that they are probably driving. They're probably not going to jail for it in New York, so they're getting a free pass there anyway. But secondly is that the voter fraud that's going to occur along with the security issues should be the main concern, and those legislatures are not protecting their state.
How would you say that the administration up to this point has handled the issue of illegal immigration, specifically at the southern border?
I think they're doing the best job of any president so far. There's leadership down there. He went and listened to the boots on the ground. That's the reason for the wall idea. That's the reason for what Mexico is doing. He's put the hammer on them in Guatemala. He has his exercise of leadership, and the Border Patrol guys would agree with me, along with a lot of law enforcement, best law enforcement, rule of law president that we may have had in the last 40 years.
What else do you think that the United States government needs to do in order to really curb this problem moving forward?
I think that they've got to come together and go to work and have a comprehensive immigration reform. But I think in the immediate future, they've got to start with just securing the southern border. They have got to close the family loophole. And then they have got to look at themselves and say, okay, what are we going to do with these people here? And how do we get the criminals out of here, the people who are part of the organized crime, part of the evildoers that are preying on that immigrant community, and we need to separate them. But those are a few things I think we should be doing.
But I do want to touch on something maybe a little bit more on a positive note before we leave too. You've been doing a lot of great deeds, a lot of good work this Christmas season down in your community right now. In fact, you have a Christmas Drive Present event right now. I just want to let you talk about that for a little bit before we let you go.
Thank you, Alex, for that. Is that last Saturday, what we did in Tarrant County here in the greater Fort Worth area is we hosted and got Christmas for the children of the incarcerated. These are kids that are often left behind in hard places and with great-grandmothers, grandmothers, foster care, and they're just simply left behind. And the last time they saw somebody like me, it was under horrible circumstances where mom or dad went away. So we had an opportunity to have a moment with these children to, number one, make sure that they had good holidays, but also to love on them and talk to them and encourage them and demonstrate that the community was with them and wanted them to succeed. It's been one of the best events I've been involved with in my law enforcement career. The Potter's House of Fort Worth was the host church, and they have Tiffany at the Potter House of East Fort Worth. If they wanted to go to that and participate, they can set the stage for not only the rest of this year, but next year, because we're going to continue this. These kids were left behind, and like I said, it was just an incredible event. Hopefully we broke a few cycles.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear, especially at this time of the year. Sheriff Waybourn, I can't thank you enough for, first of all, that effort, too. It's such an important cause, and also for coming on tonight and providing us with your insight.
God bless you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Sheriff.